Then I will start with the presentation. Well, this is something that we have done yesterday, that's climate and agriculture. And we said that the prominent element that influence the production of crops are temperature, humidity, sunshine, air, soil, and evaporation. Now you'll see that except for soil, uh, it is important to note that all these factors are interrelated to each other in the sense, say for example, sunshine will affect temperature, temperature and sunshine will affect the moisture, temperature variations will affect the wind, and so on and so forth. Okay, we spoke about these in a bit of detail yesterday as well, that as far as temperatures are concerned, different crops are going to require different temperatures. In fact, the same crop will require different temperature conditions at different times. At the time when you're sowing a particular crop, the temperatures and the moisture and the soil, sunshine requirement could be different. And at the time of harvesting or at the time of fruiting or flowering, the temperature conditions required would be different. That's one aspect about the temperature. The second aspect is that there is a range between which majority of the plants or the crops which for which agriculture is practiced. Uh, there is a sustenance range, and so you'll see that very high temperatures will not do for agriculture. At the same time, very low temperatures also will not do for the purpose of agriculture is concerned. Moisture, I did say yesterday also that it's very similar to temperature, that too much of moisture or too less of moisture is not um, going to be beneficial there. Every crop, every plant is going to have its requirement as far as moisture is concerned. Again, similar to temperature, at various levels of growth, okay, moisture is going to be different. Say, for example, as far as rice is concerned, you'll see that you require the fields to be flooded with rice, flooded with water, sorry, as far as sowing of rice is concerned. But as it comes towards harvest, one would require lesser amount of moisture. As far as cotton again is concerned, you'll see that we would require appreciable amount of moisture, but towards the plucking of the cotton buds, as it is called, okay, rainfall is not necessary, or in fact, rainfall, if it rains, then it's very difficult for the farmer to gain the benefit out of those cotton buds as such. Sunshine is again a very important aspect, basically because of the fact that it helps in the basic process of photosynthesis and the generation of chlorophyll and so on and so forth. So the duration of sunshine, once again, you'll see that this sunshine should not transfer into higher temperature, because you'll see that larger trees may sustain in intense sunshine, but smaller plants certainly will have a problem if the sunshine is going to be very hard as such. So all those aspects, given the sunshine, again, the flowering of different flowers, they are uh, say the output as far as sorry certain products are concerned will depend on the hours of sunshine that you would have, and some crops and some flowers will require a longer period of sunshine, and some can do it within a shortest period of sunshine. And wind, we said yesterday, okay, just like its impact in the topics in the paper in climatology, you'll see that wind plays an important role. Uh, one basic, I would say, function that wind performs is pollination. You see that the pollen grains are going to be transferred from one area to the other. Okay? But you'll see that again, just like the earlier three factors, okay, uh, too strong a wind obviously is going to be a difficult constraint as far as the whole agricultural purpose and the relation that agriculture and climate have. So we go ahead with the next aspect. That's the requirement of agriculture, physical factor in agriculture, and that is soils. When we look at soils, we look at them from different points of view in the sense that soil or texture of the soil, structure of the soil, color of the soil, temperature of the soil, and the mechanical analysis of the soil as such. Okay, when we speak about the mechanical analysis, it's basically on a very broad scale. You divide the particles of soil into, say, from down upwards. That's from the smaller part to the larger part, as such that from clay to silt, and from silt to fine sand, and from fine sand to coarse sand as such. And now you'll see that as far as these aspects are concerned, clay has a very small diameter as far as a soil particle, constituent of a soil particle is concerned. It is 0.002 mm, and it grows to nearly 2 mm when we come to a coarse sand as such. You will find a combination of all these. You know, this is basically a division which we have for the purpose of, say, academic purpose. However, you'll see that a combination of these will be seen when it actually results into this thing that's, say, from a combination of silt, sand, and clay. Okay, you'll see that they give us different types of soils. Okay, now how do you read this? Okay, you'll see that this is a triangle. At the vertex of each of the triangle, you have one particular uh, size named, okay, silt, sand, and clay. Okay, you'll see that here you're going to have sand, here you're going to have clay, and here you're going to have silt. Now, where the names are written as such, that shows 100% clay here, 100% sand here, and 100% silt here. So that corner is known by that particular name, but then you'll see that from 100 to 80 and 80 to 60, 40, 20, and 0%. Okay, so this whole uh, side of this triangle is divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. Okay, and so every side of this triangle, which reads into percentage of clay, percentage of silt, and of course this is going to be percentage of sand. So a combination of these three. Say for example, I am referring to uh, clay in all. Okay, you'll see that the percentage of say clay, we'll see that you have 70% of clay, and you'll have lesser amount of sand, and of course you're going to have much lesser amount of silt. Okay, only 30%. Okay, this is going to be 70%, and that leaves us with only what, 10% of sand. Okay, so for example, you are referring to silty clay. That is how you look into this triangular diagram. That silty clay is going to be a bit more of silt into the clay, and then silty clay loam is here, and then you have silty loam basically because you have come far away from clay here. Okay, you'll see that a very low amount of clay is here, and it is compensated by a significant amount of sand. However, a very high amount of silt. So combination gives us what is called as silty loam. Okay, and then you come here, you have clay loam. Okay, and here you have loam exclusively, in the sense that you have more or less equal proportionates of loam with a relatively higher percentage of silt. Okay, so that is how you read into this particular diagram. The texture of the soil is basically uh, whether it is a coarse, whether it is a sand, whether it is silt or clay. Okay, the average. Okay, the average, now it will not be that the whole of the soil that you are holding in your hand will be completely of the size that is 0.222, or it will not be point not 2 mm to not 2 uh, uh, 0.2 mm as such. It's a mixture. Soil is always going to be a mixture unless and until you are absolutely in that particular area, in the sense that if you go into the delta regions of a river, then you'll see that even there you will not find 100%, but then you will find that silt and clay, okay, and particularly clay is going to be in higher proportion. In the middle courses of a river, you'll find that you'll have silt more and clay less, and then in the higher courses of the river, you tend to have fine sand, and the more near the head of the river that you travel, the particles tend to get coarser and coarser. Okay, so the texture of the soil will be a mixture of all this, but then you're able to identify with a particular soil, just as we have seen in this particular diagram, that there is going to be one section which is going to be higher. So you could say that this is a soil which has a coarse texture. This is a soil which has a silty texture. This is a soil which has a clayey texture as such. So that is how you explain the texture. As far as the structure of the soil is concerned, we are going to do the structure of the soil, how the layering. Okay, just like we did the structure of the atmosphere, you're going to have a structure of the soil also. I'm going to come to that in the next slide. We are going to do that in detail. Color of the soil is something which is related to a lot many things, in the sense that uh, uh, the parent material of that particular area. Okay, say for example, you'll see that in Maharashtra, we are known to have what is called as Regur soil. Now, what is Regur soil? You'll see that the Regur soil is, or it's also called as the black soil in Maharashtra, because the parent material is basalt, and you'll see that basalt is dark in color. The eventual soil that comes up is black soil. Now, this is a very interesting thing to note about the Regur soil, and I hope many of you all do know about this, those who come from families which have an agricultural background, that the Regur soil has a characteristic of, say, refertilizing itself. Now, what does this refertilizing or re-enriching itself is concerned? Okay, if you have seen that during the summer season, particularly wherever you have black soil, what happens is when the soil dries up, okay, it uh, develops cracks, and many a times in the very hard part of the summer, what happens is these cracks open up significantly large, in the sense uh, there have been cases wherein they have been so large that the foot of a bullock could be caught into that, and it could get twisted as such. So it could be at any point of time as large as 4, 5, 6 centimeters also. Okay, it depends on the intensity with which the sun shines during that particular season. However, the advantage of this is these cracks develop, and these cracks are deep also. So what happens is if say the polygons that develop, okay, on the sides of these cracks, okay, these cracks say will show you a lot of polygonal structure, and the borders of this, they release the soil material, and this released soil particles, they fall into the cracks, so they go deep down. So this has been a natural process which operates for these soil, you'll see that the surface material tends to go down and the new material is brought up. So this is a soil. So, this is an example of a soil, the Regur soil, which naturally recoups itself, okay, or it recycles itself as such. Then another thing which is important for the soil is the temperature of the agriculture is the temperature of the soil, because again very high temperatures or very low temperatures will restrict the growth of the roots on one side, and of course the growth of the plant stem and leaves on the other. Okay, so temperature conditions of the soil are very important as well. And the last thing that that we can speak about is the mechanical analysis. As I said, that coarse sand is going to have a larger section of that particular soil, which is between zero point 0.2 and 2 that's millimeters in diameters. A clay soil is going to have, say, the average particle size, which is going to be less than 0.002 millimeters as such. So it's going to be very small. In short, I could say it's the diameter is as small as a thousandth part of a millimeter as such. So clay is very fine, very fine, and that's why you see that clay materials will stick into each other, and when they stick into each other, you'll see that they will not allow the water to seep through into it. On the other hand, you'll see that as far as sand is concerned, because the diameter is more, you'll see that it will leave a lot of what are called as pore spaces, and water will easily seep through coarser sand. However, you'll see that for agricultural purposes, both of these are required to be avoided, basically, because if you're going to have a coarse sandy soil, then you'll see that water retention is going to be very less. On the other hand, if you're going to have clay soil, which is going to hold water, you'll see that aeration is going to be very difficult. Aeration is basically circulation of air, and if aeration is not there, you'll see that the roots will have difficulty, and many a times in such cases, you'll see that the roots will decay, and that will impact the growth of the plant as such. So soil, as a matter of fact, and of course the climatic factors also, as a matter of fact, need to be in a perfect balance, and you'll see that this balance is identified for individual crops. Okay, it's not going to be the same for all the products. Tropical products will have their own balance. Temperate products are going to have their own balance of sunshine, temperature, and moisture, and so on and so forth. So that's an important and interesting thing to note. Coming back to the soils, you'll see that when we speak about soils in general, on a very broad scale, we tend to say, just a moment, if I've missed out on, oh, sorry, we missed out on the color of the soil. As far as the color of the soil, I was speaking about the black soil, but you'll see that you have laterite soil, which is reddish in color, you have the red soil, and you have the yellowish soil. It all depends on the minerals that are in plenty, that type of mineral which is in plenty in that particular soil as such. Okay, so that's about the color. Okay, anyway, coming back to the types of soil, okay, you have three basic types of soil. Okay, I'll just enlarge this for you all, okay, so that all of us can look into this aspect. That you have zonal soils, you have intrazonal soils, and you have azonal soils. So what are zonal soils? Okay, they have zones. Okay, they are well differentiated zones derived from strong climatic and biological influences. So external influences are more on zonal soils as such. Okay, their distribution shows a close relationship with climate. Okay, so you'll see that equatorial type of climatic regions will have a particular type of soil. Mediterranean regions will have a particular amount of soil. Deserts will have a particular type of soil. Monsoon type of climate, taiga type of climate will have a particular soil. So you'll see that the temperature and the rainfall and of course the sunshine. If they are going to have a telling impact on the soil, then such soils are going to be called as zonal soils. Uh, on the other hand, instead of these aspects, if the relief is going to be important, if the parent material is going to play an important role as far as the formation is concerned, then you'll see that that's going to be called as intrazonal. Say, for example, as I said, that we just spoke about black soils in Maharashtra, regur soils, and you don't find them in the other parts of India, though all of India would be classified under monsoon type of climate. So this will not be a zonal soil. This is going to be an intrazonal. So within a zone, you're going to have a type of soil which is dominated by the parent material, and that's why these are called as black soils or regur soils as such. Okay. In fact, you'll see that the color of the soil is seen to be helping classifying them into various types. This is because the characteristics of the soil have a close relationship with the color of that particular soil. Now, what is the third type of soil? This is the azonal soil. Okay, you'll see that azonal basically means that it is not controlled by. It will not have much relationship with the area in which it is found. You'll see that it is uh, the profile of this particular soil. Now, what exactly do we mean by a profile? I'll come to that in just a moment. We are going to see that in the diagrams above, and many a times you'll see that these soils are not found in the areas wherein they are developed as such. Okay. Now you would say, sir, how is this possible that these soils are not found in the areas which they are developed? You'll see that if you see the examples here, ozonal soils are poorly developed profile due to limited amount of time that the soil gets into forming processes. You'll see that very recent deposits of alluvium or loess or sand dunes are examples of ozonal soils. So you see that the soils which are found in the Gangetic plains are ozonal soils basically because they are brought from the Himalayas and they settle down here as such. But you'll see that the soils in the Konkan region are intrazonal soils. Okay, in the sense the Regur is an intrazonal soil also as such. Okay, so these are very interesting aspects when we have to take into consideration when we go into relating and trying to understand the relationship between soil and the uh, relationship between soil and agriculture as such. Now, this is a soil profile. If I'm going to cut or dig into soil, you'll see that from the top to the bottom. Okay, of course, this is going to vary from area to area, but normally you'll see that from the top to the bottom, the soil texture and the color does not remain the same. Okay, that's basically because you have a lot of uh, other aspects which influence. So a soil profile is divided into say A00, A0, A1, A2. These are the various layers all the way down to the D. Okay, now D is basically the parent material. If I'm going to go this way, okay, D is going to be the parent material. So in the case of regur soils, you'll see that basalt rock is the parent material. Immediately above that, that's the C type. You're going to have, so broadly you have only A, B, C, D. Let me tell you, if you see that A, B, C, and D. Okay, uh, of this C and D, okay, D is the parent material, the C is the weathered parent material, okay, which is it's the rock that has just started to break away. Okay, you must have studied this in weathering as such that rocks they are going to disintegrate. This disintegration is going to be physical, or the decomposition of the rocks is going to be chemical. So chemical weathering, physical weathering is going to start generating what is called as regolith. Okay, this is regolith. Okay, so partially weathered parent rock is going to be classified into C. Okay, now what is B? you'll see that this is basically the zone of accumulation. Now, what is zone of accumulation and what is a zone of alluviation? Alluviation, you'll see that what happens is when you have rain which is falling in these parts, okay, this is the upper part, of course, this is the upper part, and this is the lower part, okay, of the soil. This is towards more towards the surface, and then this is more deeper, obviously, as such. So when water is going to fall and it's going to go deep down this way, you'll see that it carries a lot of material that it can dissolve in it. So uh, the zone from which material is let away, that's called as the zone of alluviation. And झोन ऑफ एक्युम्युलेशन इज आता हे सगळं मटेरियल जे सोडलं जाणार आहे, डिझॉल्व्ह होणार आहे, फिजिकली कॅरी होणार आहे, केमिकली कॅरी होणार आहे, की ते कुठे जाऊन स्थिरावणार आहे, तर ते बी लेयर मध्ये स्थिरावणार आहे. आता अर्थातच हाऊ डीप इट विल गो, हाऊ सुपरफिशियल इट विल स्टे, विल ऑल बी डिसाइडेड as per the amount of rainfall, temperature, and sunshine, and so on and so forth, the texture of the soil, and so on and so forth. So most of the activities as far as the soils are concerned takes place into A and B category only. However, you'll see that the thickness of these will vary. This is a very generalized and idealized profile, let me tell you. This will vary from area to area. Sometimes you'll have a very thick A layer, very small B layer, and smaller C and D layers. Sometimes you'll have A and B, which are very small, and then you have a thicker C, and you could have a D. Okay, sometimes you'll see on mountain slopes, particularly, you'll see that hardly see the surface layers will directly come in contact with the C and the D layer, and you'll have those very small micromillimeters of A or B as such. Okay, in such areas you hardly have B, basically because you don't have a distance to be traveled by the material, soil material as such. So B in most cases is not there. You'll have very thin A layer, and then immediately you come to C and D. So there are different combinations, and you'll see that that is why soil and climate and all these things play a very important role as to which crop is going to grow where. Okay, even if we decide that I'm going to grow this particular crop here, it's not in our hands, let me tell you. You have to first analyze the profile of the soil. What is the matter? What is the matter which is content, which is found in the profile, and then you can choose a particular crop. And that's why soil testing becomes very important. If I am to divide these two, A and B, and try to explain you about these, you'll see that you have A00 written and A0 written. That's basically because this is a very loose surface material. And what does this loose surface material include? This includes loose leaves and organic debris, mostly decayed. You'll see that the day-to-day leaves that fall onto the surface of the soil, okay, which can be blown away very easily. That's A00. A0 is some material that has decomposed, and it has transferred itself into organic matter, and it is holding on to the original soil, okay, which is not easily separated unless and until, of course, you're going to have very forceful separation as such. That's A0. A1 onwards, actually, you'll see that you're going to have the A1 to A3, the three sections, which are the zone of alluviation, and which will have the mineral matter in it, minerals. Okay, NPK जेव्हा तुम्ही शेतीचे फर्टिलायझर आणलं जातं घरी, खत आणलं जातं घरी, केमिकल पर्टिक्युलरली, त्याच्यावर एनपीके पर्सेंटेज दिलेलं असतं. एनपीके, sodium, potassium, and in nitrogen. Okay, potassium is P, and sodium is K, as such. So याचं combination असतं, and all this starts getting जिथे soil, actual soil is, that's A1 onwards. This is normally darker colored, जुना organic matter याच्यामध्ये सापडतो, and you'll have some amount of mineral matter in it as such. A2 is light colored basically because ह्याच्यातनं लीचिंग जास्त होतं, म्हणजे ह्याच्यातला जो मिनरल कंटेंट आहे हा वॉश आउट होऊन खाली जाणार आहे तुमचा. Okay, and it will be gathering itself into the B layer as such. And then A3 is transitional to B, but more like A. So you'll see that remembering this profile is significantly easy in the sense that very loose is A00 or and A0. A1 is something that is related to the above one. A3 is something that is related to the below one. So the core component of A is more in A2 only. Okay, that's how you can remember this. म्हणजे आता A3 च बघा तुम्ही. It's a transition. Okay, बदल होतोय A to B, but it resembles more to A. Similarly, B, you'll see that is B1 is again transitional, but it is more like B rather than looking like A as. Okay, just like A2 where you have maximum leaching, B2 is where you have maximum accumulation. Okay, असं हे लक्षात ठेवायचं. And then B3 is something like A3 was transitional, B3 is transitional to C. But you'll see that C is not a transition basically because the basic thickness of it is going to be varying, and you'll see that it is very difficult to actually further divide C. You'll see that for research purposes, people can divide it into various layers further. But normally, you'll see that the C and the D layers are kept as they are when we are generally studying soil for the purpose of agriculture. Okay, because you'll see that C is not going to be much used as a part of soil when we are actually referring to the use of soil for agricultural produce. Okay, but when we are generally studying the soil profile, you have to go all the way to the D. Okay, but normally you'll see that agriculture is related to A and B only. Okay, so that's one thing, and this is how actually this should be looking. Okay, this is one more way of looking at all those layers as such. Okay, what we called as A0 and A00 is called as also called as the O horizon here. This is surface litter, foreign leaves, and partially decomposed organic debris as such. Then you have the topsoil, organic matter, decomposed organic matter has now converted into humus, which is rich, and you are going to have a lot of living organisms in it, in the sense that you're going to have earthworms, and you're going to have insects, and you're going to have bacteria of various types which work toward the fertility of that particular soil. It's called as topsoil. Then you come to what we refer to as A2. There is actually the E horizon here. Okay, this is the zone of leaching. This is the zone where the minerals are going to be removed from, they are going to be dissolved, or they're going to be suspended, and under the force of gravity they're going to move down. Okay, they either move down by themselves, or you'll see that they are pushed down as a mixture of these minerals along with water particularly as such. Okay, then you come to the B horizon. Okay, and this is the subsoil accumulation of iron, aluminum, humic compounds, and clay leach down from A to E horizons. ह्याच्यातनं जे material leach होत है, that's going to be occurring here. So you'll see that the roots are traveling up to the B horizon only. Okay, you'll see that C is very similar to the C here. It is what? It is basically weathered parent material, partially broken down inorganic minerals as such. You'll find them in the C, and of course the D part is the impenetrable layer. Okay, you'll see that normally content is not able to penetrate through because it's very hard as such. Okay, so you either term it into A, B, C, D, or you say A horizon, B horizon, C horizon, and R horizon, or the bedrock horizon, bedrock as such. Okay, so this is how it is. Okay, the soil profile, and the upper two layers are of utmost importance. You'll see that the thickness, as I said, of respective horizons will vary from area to area, region to region. That's climate one from one climatic region to the other climatic region. Whether the soil is zonal, whether the soil is azonal, or whether the soil is intrazonal as such. Okay? So you'll see that this is about soil profiles, or I would say this is the structure of the soil. Okay, then we come to now having understood the various components that make up the soil. Uh, a soil which easily supports vegetation is going to be called as a is rather called as a fertile soil. Now, the fertility of a soil is going to be dependent on so many factors. Now, what are these factors on which the fertility of a soil is dependent on? Okay, this is a mixture of all the factors that we have seen to date. The first one is suitable temperature for the development of every type of plants. Okay, we see that, as I said, that yes, in very high temperatures you're going to have cacti, but you'll see that it's only specialized cacti which grow in very high temperatures. On the other hand, in very low temperatures, you may have mosses, you may have algae which will grow, but it's only that, but those species which will grow there. We want to cultivate maximum number of diverse plants as such. So it's the range in between them, okay, which is going to be very important as far as uh, temperature is concerned. So it should not be very low, that's all the way down to 15 and 10 and so on and so forth. It should not be very high. It should not be crossing 40 degrees centigrade and so on. Anything in between. Again, there is no, as I said, that for plants together, there is no actual temperature range, but normally we say that it's going to be between 20 and 30 degrees. Different plants will have their own sustaining capacity, and thus you'll see that the temperature will vary from every type of plant as such. Then if the temperature is fine, that is going to be one of the first factors which is going to be affecting the fertility of the soil. Then supply of water. Water is very necessary because you'll see that a plant sustains itself in the amount of water, and the mineral content from the soil is picked up in the form of mixture solution from the water, and it's taken into the main system of the plants. Okay, so water helps in bringing the nutrients through the roots into the plant as such. So uh, just as we have seen that in other works of life, water is important. You'll see that for agriculture also, bringing in the nutrients also, water plays a very important role. So if you have ample amount of water, I'm saying ample, I'm saying optimum, I'm not saying very high amount of water, remember. Okay, yes, again, there are going to be different types of plants which will require different levels of water. In fact, you see that some plants grow in water. Say, for example, a lotus plant is going to grow in water. That's called as hydroponics. On the other hand, hydrophytes also they are called as. On the other hand, you have xerophytes. Xerophytes are plants which can sustain in very minimum amount of water in deserts and so on and so forth. And the rest of the plant kingdom is in between these two as such. So water, though you speak about the desert where it's in lesser proportion, though you speak about them in the halophytes as such, or hydrophytes as such, okay, and in between. Okay, the requirement of water is something which is very necessary. There is no plant which can survive without water as such. So supply of water, whatever condition it may require, is very necessary. And in the soil again, it's dependent on the soil that the plant will grow, isn't it? So the plant is growing good, so you'll see that all the material required for that plant is there in the soil, which includes water as. Then you'll see that some one point which tends to be neglected as far as helping the fertility of the soil is aeration. Okay, you'll see that air is again a requirement as far as the soil is concerned. So it's basically a requirement for the roots. It's because you'll see that if air is easily passing through the pores of the soil. It's then that the plant can grow properly as such. Then we come to various plant nutrients. Okay, you have different nutrients, and these comprise our food elements. We'll see that nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, as I said, that NPK, the first of the three. Okay, then of course lime is equally important, potash is equally important, iron, and then you have minor nutrients or what are called as trace elements, which is copper, lead, boron, manganese, iodine, nickel, cobalt, and molybdenum. Okay, if you go into the details of this particular topic, they have given you the importance of each of this. I'm not going into the details of that, but then the PDF that I've posted on the group today include the detailed requirements and the importance of the major and the minor. Okay, the major ones: nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, lime, potash, iron, and of course the other ones are to follow. Then at the same time, you'll see that we need to be not having certain elements. These are harmful elements as such. Okay, fertile soil should be free of harmful matter. Okay, now what are these? You'll see that sodium chloride or sodium sulfate, acidic nature, or too alkaline. Sodium carbonate is too alkaline, and sulfuric acid is too acidic on either side. So soil should not be having these components on a larger scale, so that could bring down the fertility of the soil as such. And lastly, absence of weeds. Okay, because you'll see now absence of weeds are very important with reference to agricultural practice, basically because when I'm going to have a weed and when I'm going to have a crop, the problem is that because weeds are wild, they are more potent of using up the fertile nutrients in the soil. Now, why are your plants not that much capable? That's basically because the fact that you are taking and growing that particular crop for years together, and you have literally pampered the crop with fertilizers and ample amount of good quality soil and ample amount of water and so on and so forth. So what happens is genetically that crop uh, tends to forget things which are supposed to be uh, say useful for that particular plant. It's very similar to a kid who is growing in a very protected environment and a kid which is growing in an unprotected environment as such. Okay, you see की बंगल्यात राहणारा पोरगा जास्त लवकर आजारी पडतो, झोपडपट्टीतला पोरगा लवकर आजारी पडत नाही. So when it comes to fight against the weeds, तण जे म्हणतो आपण, weeds is nothing but तण जे उगवतं शेतामध्ये. Okay, what happens about it in that particular case is that weeds grow faster. Okay, they grow faster basically because they absorb the nutrients faster, leaving behind a very less amount of nutrients available for the crop that you have planted, and that's why तण काढणं ज्याला म्हणतो, it's going to be very important component of agricultural practice through a particular season of cultivation. Okay, so fertile soils should be free from weeds. That's another important aspect as such. Okay, that leaves us with only one aspect, and that's soil erosion and how do we prevent soil erosion as such. We don't have that much of time today. I'm going to close this lecture here, and we'll take this up when we meet next time, and immediately we'll move to the other factors. These were the physical factors or the natural factors. We'll then move to the human factors and go into the details of those factors when we meet next time, probably this coming Wednesday. Uh, there's one more announcement to add to the internal assessment announcements that I've made earlier, that you have to prepare. First, you have to prepare your PPT, and I will make an assignment. You'll have to submit your PPT there, say by around आज किती तारीख आहे? 7. So by around before the next lecture, say Wednesday 11th, okay, 2-3-4 दिवसात तुम्हाला तुमची PPT सबमिट करावी लागेल, and you can of course develop beyond that also, but I want a basic PPT submitted before or on the 11th of August. That's and why I'm doing this is basically from 12th we are going to start our presentation. So बरेच मुलं काय करतील की अगदी प्रेझेंटेशनच्या आधीपर्यंत तयार करत राहतील पीपीटी. So the focus is not going to be there. Remember, this is not just a presentation. You are actually studying that particular topic for the other members in the class. So you have to be good in that. So if you finalize your PPT earlier, thinking on the PPT and adding to the material and reading material for that is going to be easier. And that's why I wanted to be submitted before the lecture on Wednesday. I'm giving you what today, more than half a day, tomorrow, डे आफ्टर अँड ट्यूसडे 8, 9, 10 आणि आजचा दिवस आहे. जवळजवळ 4 दिवस आहेत तुमच्याकडे पीपीटी बनवायला. आय वॉन्ट द पीपीटी रेडी अँड Wednesday before we start with the lecture, the PPT should be submitted so that I can then give you the sequence of who's going to be speaking how in the remaining days, that's the 12th, 13th, and 14th of August. Yes. That's all from me for today. Okay, we'll stop the recording and